By the way, I hate the way they've done these pictures, not the setup, but the kids. They're putting on helmets with visors. They're covering their face. Like there's so many of them I can't even use because you can't tell who it is. They're covering their faces. This is a new trend, apparently. You're trying to build your brand and at the same time covering your face for a picture. I'm a believer that this team's going to win the national championships. The rivalries, it's up there on top of the list, man. And if we allow them to devalue it, we lose a lot of what makes college football special. Don't let them do it. Don't let them devalue what it means to you. Welcome into Juck on Bucks on a Tuesday. Appreciate you so much for joining me. Today we go over some recruiting, some official visits, not just Buckeye targets who were in Columbus, but a couple of big-time Buckeye targets who were spread out around the country. And we will start with Felix Ojo, number one tackle in the class, a kid from Texas who was at Texas over the weekend amongst 20 Lamborghinis all over the field. And Felix had himself a good time, a really good time. And I've thought for a little while, as pretty much everybody else has, that pulling him out of Texas, going to be quite a chore, but doable for the Buckeyes. I no longer feel that way. It doesn't sound to me like this is a guy who's got the typical priorities that we would need to see for someone to make that decision to leave Texas to come to Ohio State. For instance, what entices him most about Texas in the city of Austin? Number one, it's building his brand and playing early. And that generally isn't the priority list in order that you hear from somebody who, I don't know, wants to, it just doesn't feel like Ohio State. Doesn't feel like an Ohio State guy. I don't say that to sound haughty. It's just like Ryan Day and the way he recruits and the priorities that he puts on the program don't seem to be those that sell to a kid that has building the biggest brand as number one priority. And honestly, he can probably do that better at Texas where he lives. I think what people are failing to see here, parents and advisors, is there's a maximum to how big you can build your brand as an offensive lineman. And if that's your number one goal, like people just aren't walking around with college offensive lineman t-shirts and memorabilia. It's just not a thing. So I get it. You want to maximize your value, and you could certainly do that at Texas. You can't do that anywhere better than Ohio State, but maybe being from Texas will help him. At any rate, Felix Ojo not looking great. How about Tyler Atkinson, number one linebacker in the country, out of Grayson High School in Georgia? He took his official visit to Georgia, his 15th time on the campus of Georgia since the 8th grade. Number 16 will be on Wednesday when he goes for a 7-on-7 tournament with his team. Atkinson says, I'll never forget my official visit here. And a few things that really stood out, I prefer not to tell. So he's going to keep it personal. Didn't have much to say about that visit as far as his Ohio State visit. We assume it's coming up this weekend, though he's not announced it yet, as he's letting everybody know one visit at a time. But we expect him to be in town this weekend. Buckeyes will not be playing from a position of strength here, as it appears the Dogs in the solid lead. And again, another tough pull. That's the dude's home state. Going to be a tough one, but I'm sure James Laurinaitis will swing like hell. Darius Gray, the best interior offensive lineman in the country, was in town in the middle of last week. And in the weekend, he went down to LSU. Now, I've always felt like the Buckeyes were in that top half of the 8 schools he's still interested in, but LSU has been like in the top 2, and it feels like they firmly are planted there, if not number 1, coming out of this visit for Darius Gray. And ultimately, he is going to make this, kind of last through the season for him, which gives Ohio State a lot more opportunity should they not fill the class up, which I'm kind of hoping they do. But, it just doesn't feel likely that Darius Gray is in this class. Savion Hyder, the best running back in the country, was up at Michigan. And that is his 4th and final official visit after going to Georgia, Tennessee, Ohio State, and now Michigan. And Savion Hyder and his camp have done maybe the best job of all these top recruits. If the goal was, we don't want anybody knowing anything about what's going on here, they've done it. Lip sealed. They're not leading on anything. And then all of a sudden, after this one, his agent tweets, business is booming. Now, that could be in relation to his visit at Michigan. It might be something else, but it certainly came across to me as having to do with something with that visit at Michigan. Then we got Luke Wafle, Now, out of all these guys, Luke Wafle was not only to me the most important one for the Buckeyes as far as roster needs, but also the one that felt the most realistic for Ohio State to land, the one that feels like, man, this guy could come in, play early, fit in great from every standpoint. And it just felt like a real Buckeye guy, but from New Jersey. Penn State recruits great there. His brother's at Penn State. A tough one, no doubt. Currently down to Penn State, Ohio State, Texas, and USC. He's been to Ohio State, Penn State, and Texas. USC, his final official visit scheduled. And he went out there over the weekend. And we have seen a couple of prospects go out to USC, with USC kind of being, down on the list, not really seen as a threat, and then leave that visit from USC. And all of a sudden, USC's like right at the top of the list. And that just happened with Luke Wafle. Luke Wafle exits USC with Steve Wiltfong saying he thinks they're the leader now. Now, how is it that USC has hopped over Penn State, where his brother goes to school, Ohio State, where he's a perfect fit, and Texas, when USC hasn't put together a solid season in a couple of years and things have not been looking very well? They've been using money to bridge that gap to, get themselves on everybody else's level in this recruiting class. But the new deal just went into effect. All these deals that get signed through Learfield and with companies, they're going to the clearinghouse. So how are they doing it? They've got the same budget everybody else has now, that 20.5. You can, everybody's going to be pretty much, from that standpoint, what's the school's paying, you're going to have about the same budget of how much you're paying to your current players on your roster, how much you're giving to first-year guys coming in. So how is it that USC is able to bridge that gap and go way over what most can? Well, since this just started, they're working with Learfield as well, like Ohio State, which is that they've got the huge database, all the businesses, and Chad Bowen, their GM, a sharp dude like Mark Pantoni. Well, if I'm Chad Bowen or Mark Pantoni, what I've been doing for a while now is reaching out to every program that wants to work with our student athletes. And let's just say I'm the business owner, JUCK on Bucks Vacuum Repair Shop. I heard it's big in the Big Ten to be into vacuum repairs. So JUCK on Bucks Vacuum Repair Shop. I tell Mark Pantoni, I want to be involved. I want to do a campaign with an Ohio State student athlete, and I want to do 2 meet and greets at my vacuum repair shop, 3 social media posts and a commercial, and roughly, either a new recruit or, maybe like a 2-deep player, not a super primo player. And okay, they go through Learfield's database, who has the same kind of database as the clearinghouse, and it tells them how much that deal will roughly cost. All right, JUCK on Bucks, going to cost you about $20,000. Okay, you can count me in for that $20,000 deal. Now, what we have there is a fully executed deal, just waiting on the player. We don't got the player yet. So Mark Pantoni and Chad Bowen have got stacks of these now. They got piles of them. They've been doing it for a month, talking with business owners like me, getting these open-ended deals. Now, when I sit down with Luke Wafle, Luke, here's what you're going to get from the school. This is part of your profit sharing. And now here are the amount of deals that we're going to offer you to start. And these are fully executed deals, ready for you to ink your name on it. And you just go fulfill your end of the bargain, and that's your money too. And they're setting aside hundreds of thousands of dollars of deals for him that way as well. So I'm guessing that's how they bridge the gap here, if they went about it legally, or they're just straight paying dudes bags and going about it outside the rules. We don't know yet, but I don't know how else USC could possibly have jumped in front for this kid, and it's kind of driving me nuts. At any rate, it appears they have, and in the Buckeyes, this was the guy for me, man. This was the guy. It doesn't look great. So that's where we're at. That's where we're at. All right, let's go over these Buckeye targets who were on campus over the weekend, and we'll start with Danny Odom. Danny Odom, relatively new to us, a cornerback target who is a top 200 overall kid, highly rated kid, originally from Pennsylvania, moved down to Florida to go to one of these academies, and he's been down there for a couple of years now. But Penn State, still high on his list. He's visited them. I'm sorry, he's still got them to visit, and Nebraska still. And he's already been to Auburn, Clemson, Oklahoma, and Ohio State. So the visit went well, but he's making his decision on June 23rd, and that was his first time ever on campus. So that is a pretty quick decision coming, and a lot of schools involved to feel super confident about Ohio State making a big move on the 6 foot, 175-pound cornerback. When you look at the class right now, you've got Jordan Thomas, you've got Jacob Weatherspoon. Right above them, you got Devin Sanchez and Jordan Woods, and above them, Aaron Scott and Bryce West. And I guess what I'm saying is there is not an apparent early path to playing time, not a very long relationship. It just seems like a bit of a long shot for the final remaining target for the Buckeyes when it comes to corner. I think the odds are we'll probably end this class with who we got, and that's just fine. Good looking class. The room looks solid. It's healthy. And, it's not a huge deal to me one way or the other, but it doesn't look great. Moving to the offensive line, you had Max, Sam, and Tucker Smith. So Maxwell Riley, Sam Greer, your two commits from Ohio. Tucker Smith, your commit from Arizona. And the plan was you're going to pair those three guys with a couple of top-tier target offensive linemen, right? So you got a Kenny Agboko coming in. You got Chance Campbell coming in. You got Deron Parks coming in. And not a single one of them made it. Campbell committed to Florida. Kenny Agboko is going to commit to Georgia. He canceled his visit. And Deron Parks rescheduled for next weekend. So you had your Buckeye offensive linemen that are committed. Those three dudes had themselves a good time. We love those three, but they weren't able to convince anybody else to come join the class because nobody was there with them. Moving on to the defensive line, and still the biggest need in this class, a big one with 5-star edge Carter Meadows, 6 foot 6.5, 230 pounds, just a huge target, and one that the Buckeyes were not, seen as anywhere close to the top just yet. Though they were the Final Four, it was clearly Penn State and Michigan and South Carolina mentioned by everybody ahead of Ohio State. Were the Buckeyes able to gain some ground over the weekend? It certainly seems so. They brought out Edric Houston to host him for the visit. Now, that is a big deal. You pull out Edric Houston when you really want to get the job done because nobody has got a personality on that team like Edric Houston. So Edric hosts Carter Meadows, and it feels like they definitely made some movement, but if Ohio State was going to land him, I would have hoped to see more. They were clearly running at least third, maybe fourth. Do they come out leading? Because you would want to see him come out leading with him heading to Michigan next week, who was pretty high on his list from the beginning. And Michigan, with how hot they've been on the defensive line recently, with Lou Esposito, who is now becoming a dude in recruiting. Like, he's becoming a legit dude. And he's got the track record and the NFL record to back it up, putting guys into the league, coaching high talent dudes. It feels like they're a big threat here. It feels like Penn State's a big threat here. I don't think South Carolina really is that much. Did the Buckeyes make a big enough move? That's the question. Ultimately, I think we'll find out pretty soon. He hasn't announced when he's going to make a decision, but I don't think it'll be past July. So we'll find out soon enough. He's obviously a whale of a recruit. It would be, especially with the upcoming changes to the defense that I think we're going to start seeing. I think a lot of people are starting to come around to the fact that this is going to be a different defense. That comment Jackson Ford made kind of caught storm and is really flying around. People are taking notice that this is like something Larry Johnson never would have said. And I think it bodes well for the defense moving forward to get this type of guy in Carter Meadows. Will it land him? Maybe, maybe not. But we're going to see some guys like that coming in at some point when we start to show, look, we're going to utilize your skill set here. Jameer Perez, committed to Florida, has since removed that from his Instagram bio. No longer says committed to Florida. He had a great time on his visit, spending time with his teammate Sincere Johnson. And the fact that he was in town last week for camp, if you're committed to Florida and you want to stick with that commitment, you're not going to put yourself in that position to get that pressure, that high sales pressure to come and actually work out. You're going to avoid it unless you want it. And he put himself in that situation, and he worked out, and he looked really good. And 4 days later, coming in for an official. I don't believe he has another official scheduled anywhere else. So it certainly seems like we are going to see that that announcement come soon, that the Buckeyes are going to flip him, meaning 2 Glenville guys with Sincere and Jameer Perez in the class. So if you get Jameer Perez, you got your big nose tackle in the middle, then Kari Wilder, who's kind of a tweener between a 3-tech and an edge, and we'll just go ahead and put him at edge for classification purposes. And then you've got Jackson Ford, who will be making his decision in 2 weeks. He came out of his visit feeling great. I've always felt like Ohio State was a real possible destination for him. He was in my mock class before these visits, and I feel comfortable about that. So Jackson Ford, who's kind of a tweener between linebacker and edge. All right, moving on to PJ Dean, guys. Interesting stuff with PJ Dean. So PJ Dean enters this cycle as an offensive lineman, top 10 offensive lineman. Love the kid. It's great. Tyler Bowen's guy. Decides he wants to play defense. This is a 305-pounder, so automatically we're assuming, okay, it's going to be a nice big tackle. We cue up the film. Watch the kid play defensive line. He's quick. He's nasty. Uses his hands well. He's mean. Okay, we got one here. Let's do it. So Tyler Bowen passes him off to Larry Johnson, and homeboy goes from 305 to 260. Take a look at this dude. He's 260. He's lean. He's fast. He was already quick as hell at 305. And now it's like super exciting. You had him slotted in at defensive tackle, but right now he's essentially gone to a Kari Wilder. Maybe he's an end. Maybe he's a tackle. He's a versatile guy. He's a Matt Patricia guy. He's whatever they want at that weight. I'm telling you, the dude was a great athlete at 300 pounds. Now picture that kid right now looking at about 260 and put 20 pounds of muscle on him. He's up to 280 and he's lean as could be. That's the same as Will Smith Jr. weighs. And Will Smith Jr. looks like a typical defensive lineman carrying around a lot more body fat. He would be a ripped 280 at 6'4". So a really interesting prospect and an awesome kid. The interesting thing about PJ is coming into this visit, most of us following this closely expected, like at minimum, a really great visit. At maximum, might get a commitment. Really interesting stuff coming out of the visit. All of a sudden, the vibe's trending down. Steve Wiltfong comes out and says, I had Sincere Johnson and PJ Dean both with an RPM to Ohio State. I still feel really good about Sincere Johnson. With that said, PJ Dean, South Carolina and Georgia are right there, and the confidence around each of those programs is high. So he's certainly hedging his bets on PJ Dean. We hear a similar story from Jeremy Birmingham saying, we're not trying to downplay interest, then proceeds to downplay interest. Georgia and South Carolina haven't faded, and with the Buckeyes now firmly back in play for Perez and a favorite for Cam Brickle and Damari Simeon, and with players like Deuce Gerald still set to visit, it's worth wondering where a first-year full-time defensive tackle prospect sits on the list of priorities. I can tell you he does not sit below Cam Brickle. Not sure what's going on here. When we hear this from him, when we hear that from Wiltfong, it's interesting. It's certainly a change from the way it felt going into this thing. Not quite sure what to believe, but I'm of the opinion right now, I think that I'm just going to dig my heels in and say, I don't buy any of this. I don't think the staff has cooled on him at all. I don't think that PJ Dean has cooled on Ohio State at all. And I think that everything is moving forward within the next month to get that decision. And it's still going to be between Ohio State and Georgia. South Carolina is a third. Moving on into next week, Landon Barnes from Duncanville doesn't look like he's going to make his official. Deuce Gerald and Damari Simeon, 2 massive defensive line prospects, both true tackles, will be in. And Damari Simeon out of Jersey, love his film. Deuce, Been one of my favorites forever. Got the great eyebrows and the big muscles. Can't go wrong there. His dad went to Ole Miss. He's been at Ole Miss recently, really liked it at Ole Miss. And I would imagine Ole Miss is going to be swinging really, really hard to try to play on that legacy angle. But the Buckeyes have been the favorite on this one for so long. If they were to lose this, it would be a massive disappointment. Really, really massive disappointment. Now a top 100 kid is Deuce Gerald's. But I was thinking, let's say Luke Wafle and Carter Meadows, who neither of them right now looks or feels like Ohio State's in the lead. Let's say you don't land either of them. Is there a way you can combine what's left on the board here to feel like a successful class at the defensive line to you? So let's say, for instance, you get Jameer Perez as your big one tech. Then you get some combination of two of the following: Deuce Gerald's, PJ Dean, Cam Brickle, Damari Simeon. So you get two of them. That gives you three tackles with, we'll call it Damari Simeon and Deuce Gerald's, along with Jameer Perez. So there's your three tackles. And then with Kari Wilder, you get Jackson Ford. Would that be something that would make you happy? How would you feel about that class? You got versatility in Kari Wilder and Jackson Ford, who can, move back, play outside linebacker. Kari Wilder can play on the edge and move in. Then you've got a couple true tackles in Deuce Gerald's, Damari Simeon, and your true one tech in Jameer Perez. So that's the question of the day. Let me know what you think. Can you make a successful defensive line class that's going to make you happy without Luke Wafle or Carter Meadows or Jake Krull? We could throw him in there too, though I think that one's kind of distant. I think it's kind of faded. But also, man, this guy with this, I've been calling him Caden Davis for a while. Remember Caden Davis got kicked off the team for his Instagram posts and stuff. Dude, Jake Krull, with the Instagram, it's a bit much for my taste. I got to be honest. It's a bit much for me. But, I'm a little old school, as it were. Hey, I got a new sweatshirt, guys. Check it out. So I got this new sweatshirt. It was one of those pop-up ads from like Twitter or something. I was like, oh my gosh, I got to get it. Obviously, because of the sleeves, right? We've got what we're now calling the heritage sleeves in our Nike vernacular. I just call them the proper sleeves. And the reason I got it was because of the sleeves, even though it's an El Cheapo sweatshirt, like a knockoff jobby. But then it came in and they're so big, like 2 inches of stripe, like way too big. But anyway, is what it is. I'll wear it once just to show you guys and probably never see it again. I have seen nothing but the worst of the worst opinions come out from this house settlement deal, man. And they just keep coming. Some people are so mad about this, and I don't even understand why. Like, I'm seeing things like people talking about the market being manipulated to underpay these guys. This is not market manipulation. How do you determine fair market value? Fair market value is whatever someone's willing to pay. Was it fair market value from 2000 to 2025? Were those fair market value? By your definition, those were fair market value deals. Okay. All they're trying to do right now is make these ones look like those ones, which were fair market value according to your definition. So the new ones look like the old ones. That's how we know that they're not juiced with a bunch of pay for play. How else are you going to do it? How else would you propose you do it? It's the only way. How about fair market value? How about market manipulation? It is not your right to play college football. It is not your right to be part of this organization. If you want to be a school that participates under these rules, you can join and play by these rules, or you can choose not to, in which case they won't play you. It's your choice. But if you're a school who wants to play with these teams by these rules, the judge has ruled this is legal. Therefore, it's not market manipulation. It's a voluntary thing. There you go with that. How about this? The return of the bag man. All this is going to do is be the return of the bag man. I'm curious as to what these folks thought NIL collectives were. NIL collectives were the bag man with a cute name that we all knew existed. That's all the NIL collectives were. The NIL collectives were all the bag men come together as one, and they had a cute name, and somehow people felt better about that. There was no regulation. There were no reported numbers. None of the deals were real. It was all the bag man. I mean, the return of it never went away. It was wide out in public for us all to see. Apparently, they just felt better that it was right there for you to see. All those numbers were fake. All those stupid graphs you saw of what schools were paying the most NIL, that was all fake. It was all fabricated numbers. It was all bullshit. All of it. They were either fake estimates totally or using bits and pieces of information to come up with a figure that individual, whoever was making that thing, thought it was. And I saw college football show after college football show of bozos listing these things and not even knowing that this was totally fabricated. I saw the Daily Wire guys, who these guys run a horrible college football show. If you watch it, let them know. It's bad. And they have no idea what they're. One of them's David Cohn, former Michigan quarterback. It's terrible. They went over one of these lists and talked about it as if it was like tax reported numbers. It was unbelievable to me that you could be this involved with the sport and think that any of those lists were real factual numbers as to what those schools paid out in NIL. The bag man never went away. He had a name. It was called the Foundation or whatever the hell it was, the Victors Club. Will the bag man still exist in this system? Yes, he will. What's the difference in this system? There's penalties. There are now penalties for the bag man and an entire investigative and punishment wing that'll be going after those who violate the rules. We never had that before. Doesn't that sound nice to you? That when rules are violated, there is an organization now that will go after the people who are violating the rules? How is that a bad thing? I'm just waiting for one of these people to explain to me what the bad thing is. They're either mad about one of two things. Number one, they are one of these, I don't know, people who just, this is going to limit what the players can make, and that's not right. Okay, that could be the one thing they're mad about. Or they're mad about thing number two, and that is that the schools won't just acquiesce and make them all employees. Well, that's not going to happen. So in the meantime, we've got a system now that somewhat puts people on a level playing field and somewhat has some rules enforced instead of no semblance of a level playing field at all and no rules at all. So either you want some or you want none. I'll take some and roll the dice and hope that it works and hope that it holds up in court. I just don't understand where these people are coming from. I'd love to have somebody on to explain to me. If you are super against this, hit me up, let me know, and I want to talk to you about what it is you're so against and make sure that we're all talking the same language here. Because like Stu Mandel writes a big article, Return to the Bag Man. Obviously not understanding that the NIL collective was the literal bag man, only times 200, all of them together. And one of the first things he says is, who loses anything if a quarterback signs at South Dakota Tech for $3 million? Who cares? Like who loses in that deal? South Dakota Tech gets their quarterback. The quarterback gets $3 million. The school that lost him, they're the ones that lose. They couldn't afford that $3 million. It took some desperate idiot getting all his money together to come take their quarterback away. So the school that was properly running an organization and had a budget for each position, well, now some other school that's been running a hack operation comes into some money and they could just come buy away his guy. That's not good for anybody. It's good for those two parties, but it's not good for the sport. It's not good for the fan. It's not good for the program who was doing it right. It's not good. That's not. Who can argue that that's a good thing? Stu Mandel can. Of course, Stu Mandel can. But man, just bad arguments all over the place. You got people talking about, I don't think the NCAA is going to be able to do this, when this has not got anything to do with the NCAA. Like, what's history tell us about the NCAA? They're not going to be able to handle it. Like, I heard that this morning. The NCAA is not involved. It just blows my mind how people can have so many opinions on something before they even read it. Anyway, let's talk camp visitors this week at Ohio State. We've got the number one running back in 2027 coming back into town, David Gabriel George. He will be in town this time with his uncle, the Buckeye fan, and can't wait for that to happen. And it feels like there's nothing but steady progress being made between Carlos Loughlin and David Gabriel George. And the way Carlos Loughlin coaches running backs, if you want to play for him, you're a dog. These dudes are watching the way this guy coaches, which is intense. It's just like, it's nasty. Like, he's getting the best out of these dudes, and they take it and they love it. And if you're a guy who wants to play for him, then you're a guy I want. Jimmy Kalis will be back in town. Big offensive tackle from Pittsburgh, and his older brother from Ohio, older half brother, Kyle Kalis, ended up going to Michigan, which made me so mad at the time. But now Jimmy, little brother, out of Pittsburgh, making like his 6th trip to Ohio State. He's another 2027 kid, and he loves Ohio State. So looking real good for that. Then we got 2 big-time linebackers coming in this week. The number 2 linebacker in the country, Roman Igwabuki, 6'3", 220, out of he's the number 5 linebacker out of Mount Carmel in Illinois. And then Caden Henderson, the number 2 linebacker out of Tampa Bay. And he's going to be one of these massive linebacker recruits. Like, this is going to be one of those Tyler Atkinson style deals. He's huge, long arms, uses hands really well, getting off blocks, closes fast. Not quite the twitchiness of Atkinson or even Xavier Griffin, but it's going to be one of those type of recruitments. And I can't wait to see some clips of him at camp, because he's a beast. All right, guys. We got it so good, guys. We got it good. Listen to this story. So my oldest son, 25, took a picture of me the other day and posted on his Instagram, "Happy Father's Day, Dad." Now, YouTube's really good about demographics and such. It gives you a really extensive breakdown, age groups and everything. We've always skewed older, like guys my age and up, as far as our audience here, and men. We've got like 4 women. One of them is my mom. But recently, we've been kind of trending younger. So my son posts this picture on his Instagram, and wouldn't you believe, several of his friends said, "Juck's your dad?" How about that? We got some young viewers. Appreciate you, young guys. Thanks for joining. You got it really, really good. It hasn't always been this good for Buckeye Nation, but boy, growing up in your era must be something. You've only known extreme success. Now, we've always been successful, but we did have a period in my youth where it wasn't always this great. But welcome aboard, young fellas, and I appreciate you guys. I appreciate all of you, and I'll talk to you tomorrow. Juck on Bucks out.